So Dana calls me up and is like, "Hey, I want to meet you." And my first thought was, "How did you get my phone number?" Because I'm pretty sure I didn't give him my phone number. I still don't know how he got it. So he just says, "Hey, it's Dana." And I'm like, "Oh, that's Dana White." So literally 2 days later, I'm on a flight to Vegas. So all of this is already just surreal. And we meet up and we're having he's giving me a tour of the UFC headquarters. And he's like, "Hey, let's have some lunch. You, me, and Lorenzo Fertitta are going to have lunch." So I meet Lorenzo in his office, and that's crazy in and of itself. I mean, how many billionaires do you hang out with at any point, right? So I'm just like, what the heck? We go into their conference room where they have their lunches, and then they open this door, and there's a huge kitchen right next to it. And there's all these people working in there. And they bring me up to this chef. This is the part of the story that I always like to tell because I never forget it. They bring me up to this chef, and Lorenzo says, "This is our chef. He can cook you anything you want in the whole world." So they ask me, "What do you want for lunch?" And I'm like, what's quite a menu in my head is what I'm thinking. Like, anything in the world? Okay, like, I don't know what to do. So they can tell that I'm not really decisive about it. So he opens this freezer of, like, assorted deluxe meats, right? And they're, like, naming things off. You could have this. You could have that. You could have that. And for some reason, I said tilapia. When they mentioned it, I said, "I'll have tilapia." I hate tilapia. I hate it. I've always hated tilapia. I hated tilapia at that point. It is the most bland fish ever. Here's this master chef. I'm with a billionaire and Dana White. They're saying I could eat anything in the world, and I tell them the one thing I don't actually like, tilapia. And I'm like, what am I doing? Why did I say that? So we sit down for lunch. Both Dana and Lorenzo are eating incredible steaks. Probably like, Wagyu steak. I'm sure it was like really expensive, right? They're eating these amazing steaks. And then here comes my fish. And my fish is in some kind of paper. It must be like a fancy food thing. They like tore the paper open in front of me. And I remember the salad had chocolate in it. It was really fancy stuff. Like, it was like way too, I'd never eaten anything like it before. But we had our lunch, and then I had the rest of my day. But I will never forget, like, you want to talk about weird, surreal moments. For some reason, saying tilapia to that guy while I was standing there with them will always stick out of my mind as like, what on earth? How did this even remotely happen?
Oh man, that's I mean, talk about pressure, because it's bad enough, like you say, the people that you're talking to, but then they go, anything in the world. That doesn't help. Like, choice in this situation does not help me. Like, tell me what we're going to have and tell me it's amazing. That helps. Okay, I have to ask then, how, being in the presence of those guys, like, how do you manage yourself in that situation? Because like you say, this is something you never anticipated. This is something you didn't prepare for. This is something that you go, I guess I go in and I see how it goes. Like, how do you approach something like that? How do you even begin to contain yourself? Because you must have been on edge or nervous the whole time.
Well, very much, for so many reasons. One, they didn't tell me why I was there. Dana said, "I want to meet you." That was it. That's all he said.
Wait, so he said, "I want to meet you," thinking it could have been bad?
I didn't know what it could have been. I had no idea what was going to happen. He said on the phone, well, the phone call was so brief. He said, "I want to meet you. Can you come out on Thursday?" And I said yes. He said, my person will take care of that for you. We'll give you all the details. And then I got a message like, not that much later, for an email explaining, okay, here's your flight, blah, 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 blah. And the thing is, I don't travel very much. I live in the Midwest of the United States. I've lived there my whole life. Any vacation I've ever gone on was in a car. So I've been on a plane like twice in my life. So here I am, and never by myself at that point. So, it's like, okay, I got to get on a plane by myself. They're super early in the morning. I've never been to a terminal by myself. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm flying out to Las Vegas. I've never been to Las Vegas. And I have to apparently go to meet Dana White, and I don't know what for. So already I was a bit like, I don't know what's happening here, but you just kind of flowing with it in the moment. I get to Vegas. They had a car for me, which was crazy. I was like, this is so weird. They didn't tell me that part either. I got there and there was like a guy waiting for me when I got off the plane and was like, had a little sign that said Tommy Toehold. And I'm like, oh, this is for me. And the guy drove me out. And so at that point, I had an hour and a half to wait to talk to Dana. So you want to talk about stewing in your own thoughts. I get there and they're like, okay, well, it's going to be a while. So if you want to go get lunch or something like that, or breakfast. So I was like, well, I don't even know where I would go. And they said, well, there's like a burrito place down the street. So I was like, okay, I guess. So I walk over to this place. It's so hot in Las Vegas. I'm not used to this kind of heat. So I'm sweating. And I eat whatever. I think I had like a breakfast burrito. It was good. And I come back and I'm sitting in the lobby for at least an hour, I think. And again, I'm just kind of stewing in my own thoughts. Donald Cerrone walked in with a bunch of women. And I was like, that's Donald Cerrone. That's Donald Cerrone with a bunch of women. Which was weird. I didn't say anything to him because I thought, well, I'm sure he's not expecting some fan to run up to him in the middle of at the UFC headquarters. And then finally they're like, Dana wants to see you. And I'm like, okay, let's do it. So they walk me up to this gym and I open the door to this gym and Dana is doing dips and he jumps off the dip bar and he starts doing my impression of him to me. He starts doing an impression of himself to me. That's the first thing that Dana does when I see him. And I'm just like, oh God, I'm like laughing. I don't even know what to do. And I shake his hand in the most awkward. We do like this handshake / I don't know what was happening, but it just kept going on. And I'm like, what's going on? We didn't plan any of this. Why is this happening with my hands? And it was so awkward. It ended so awkwardly. I was like, oh God, this is terrible. And then I can't remember what I said. It's something very awkward after that about, well, first of all, they had me do the voice right then. He was working out with somebody else and he was like, do Tommy Toehold. And I'm like, okay. So I just start doing it and they're all laughing. And then he's like, I'm going to take you on a tour of the building. And I'm like, great. Oh, great. I said, it looks so much bigger inside than from outside. It was like a really awkward thing to say. I don't know why I said that. Anyway, so at that point, I'm still like, I don't know what's going on. But he had just got done working out. So now he needed to clean up. So they put me in another room by myself after I just had that weird exchange for more stewing in my thoughts about, God, did I mess that up? What was that? Why did I do that with my hand? What was that handshake? And then finally he comes in and is like, hey, let me show you around. And that was the point where I was able to calm down a bit because talking to Dana in that regard, it was kind of weird. It was just like we were a couple dudes. Like it didn't really, at that point I wasn't like, man, I'm talking to Dana White. It was just like another guy. Like it was so weird how that ended up happening, that level of comfort. Up to the point of the tilapia. The tilapia thing was just, I think, a weird, because I was put on the spot. I didn't know what to do. But even the lunch itself, like you said, you would think you're sitting there with Dana White and Lorenzo Fertitta, and it didn't at all feel weird. We were just talking fights. We talked about Mayweather was going to fight Canelo at that time, and they were going on and on about how smart it was for him to fight him now when he could beat him before he got too good. And we were talking about how I got into the sport and all these other things. That's when Dana told me, he said, we were gonna fuck with you. That's what he said. I said, oh yeah? He goes, yeah, we were gonna come in here and you were gonna sit down. We're gonna have a bunch of lawyers talking about how we're gonna sue you. That's what he said. He said that we changed our mind about it. We decided not to do that. I thought, well, that's good. I'm glad you didn't bring me here to scare the shit out of me. And you know what, man? We toured the rest of the place. I met the rest of the executives. And he was with me the entire day at that point, all the way through, to the point where he was late to something that he had to film. He was filming some poker show. And he was like, well, I'm really late to this, but whatever. And then, we were just hanging out. And he was like, yeah, sorry, no big deal. And then, of course, I got to meet him again later. After that, we were at an event together. That was also pretty surreal. That's where I got the Fox job. But the whole point of them wanting me out there was about Fox to start with. I should probably mention that. That was the actual reason, if you're wondering why they flew me out, not just to meet me. But yeah, man, it was weird. It was definitely a weird feeling, but I was surprised at how comfortable I was with them when we were actually eating lunch. Like, it really did just feel like I was hanging out with a couple guys. Didn't feel like any kind of business meeting or that these people were like people I should be in awe of. They were very chill.